So this is chapter 18, Clarifying Love with Michael Ryce. And all these sessions are recorded and shared publicly to support others in these teachings. And hi, I'm Yinka and I run Hear My Voice Book Club, which is an inspirational self-development books. All the events can be found on Meetup and Facebook. This is just a quick idea of what's on. So tomorrow we're doing the 5 a.m. club. We're doing the reality worksheet again. And we've got children's meditation tomorrow. Saturday, Insanity and Joe Dispenza's meditation. Sundays, Qigong and Office and journaling session. So Michael Ryce will be back with us on the 9th of May. So that's in a few weeks' time. And 2nd of May, we've got our online monthly book club, which is The Build the Life You Want by Arthur Brooks and Oprah Winfrey. And our in-person event is The Power of Your Subconscious Mind at Deansgate in Waterstones, Manchester at 10 a.m. And then we have our Joe Dispenza book club, which is the 16th of May for chapter 6. And you do get homework for that one that you have to complete to join that session. We do have WhatsApp groups keeping people connected. And Hear My Voice Book Club runs non-profit events so everyone can take part regardless of financial status. Any donations, I asked them to go directly to Michael, and you can do that by going on his site of whyagain.org donations if anyone feels inspired or would like to support Michael and this journey.
Sweet.
If anyone doesn't know, Michael is the founder and director of Heartland and Self-Healing Centre. Michael lectures and teacher and health of and healing and true meaning of true forgiveness. Michael is also married to Jeannie Ryce, who's also joined us on some of these sessions and done one for us. So just to remember through this session to breathe, because holding your breath is exactly how you acquire a past about something. Carrying it with you, holding your breath attaches the pain of an experience to a reality in the mind. So me and Michael will continue to remind you to breathe.
Absolutely.
And in the previous chapters, Richard, a successful man in his late 30s following a breakup of another marriage, had contacted Michael. Richard felt his life was a mess and was desperate and wanted Michael's help. In previous chapter 17, The Body Has a Mind of Its Own, Michael explained the law of resonance and how this law impacts the results of our thinking. And if you haven't watched that or didn't get to join, you can watch that either on my YouTube and Michael's YouTube. It's on there for chapter 17. So it can be rewatched. I highly recommend that one. That was a really good one last time. Well, they're all good, but that was really an eye-opener for me.
Went to the heart of it, eh?
Yeah. So do you want to go straight into it, Michael, or do you want to share anything?
I'm ready to rock and roll.
Well,
we've got lots to cover here, so
yes,
let's go for it.
It's a big chapter today.
Yes.
So Richard and Michael went back to their discussion of love. Michael put forward the thought that one of the keys to this process is clarifying the idea of love, which has been ill-defined, misused, and distorted. Cleaning up its definition in our minds is an important piece of the foundational work. So what were you taught about love from your family, your peers, society, school, authority, advertisement, music, or even TV? Just noticing what you've been taught about.
Mostly insanity.
Yeah. I was definitely taught it was very conditional.
That's exactly what I was
thinking. And the byword in the culture has become unconditional love. But when you realize the mind works by resonance, if I say, don't think about the color of your car, what moves in your mind? Something about the color of your car. If I say unconditional love, what moves in your mind? Conditional love. The not and the un are not heard. What you want to do is move in the direction of functioning as all embracing love. And that you're so tightly connected to the state of being who you are that no matter what happens in your world, you're in that space, and you refuse to allow your mind to override that state in you. And when the mind tries to override that state, you remove the interfering blocks that cover up who you are as love. So it takes just about everything the world's taught us and turns it backward. Or should I say, turns it back around to truth. So nobody's ever loved you. Nobody's ever going to love you. You've never loved anyone. You're never going to love anyone. God doesn't love you. All of that is a total fallacy. Love is a state of being. It's not something we can get from another. It's not something we can give from another. It's not something we can do to another. So if I function in relationship to you as love, then I'm functioning as love. I'm not loving you. I'm being the presence of love. And there's a world of difference when you understand how the mind works. That just what happens is the mind tends to be, or the mind is designed to be, a goal achieving machine. So when you tell your mind, well, we're going to show them that we love them, which is impossible, then your mind's got a definition for love. I'm supposed to approve of them. Usually it's a very venial form of approval that we're talking about. It's not love at all. And of course, that love for most people, or what they call love, evaporates. That venial approval evaporates very quickly when somebody violates one of your goals, because it was never love in the first place. It was approval. And when you give the mind a goal to love someone, and it's supposed to be, you're always nice to them, and you do this, and you do this, and you do this, you just set them up for failure, because when you give that mind a goal, the mind is going to move in the direction of achieving that goal. And if, let's say, this person that you say, I love you to, is also the person who can resonate, let's say, your hostility or fear, they're going to resonate your hostility or fear. And if I'm supposed to always love you, and you resonate my hostility and fear, and up comes my hostility and fear, all of a sudden, what have I done? I've failed. I'm bad. I'm wrong. I'm guilty. All sorts of crazy things happen. So this work is about cleaning all of that misnomer up, all of those lies up, and getting back to the recognition that we are, and you can easily validate that for yourself. We've done this several times over the last year or so, is just hold a newborn child and tap into the essence of that newborn. And what do you have? You have the presence of love. And the newborn isn't loving you. The newborn is love. The practice, the work, is that of being who you are as love, rather than trying to measure up to somebody's definition of love. Changes the whole game. Hence, clarifying love.
So 2,000 years ago, we were taught love was the most important law to human existence. It must come first if intelligence is to be maintained. Teaching love is not religious. It is the most practical thing in the world.
And I like your scales of justice here. And sadly, most every word important to human existence in our Western culture has been turned backward. And this word law is one of them. You'll notice that most people live in a world of, well, you can't outrun the long arm of the law. There's a creator up there in the sky that's going to punish you if you don't obey. And in the Aramaic context, there's no such thing as obedience to the law. It's not about following somebody's rules. It's simply that in the Aramaic language, as opposed to law being the rule of a superior, in that language, law was simply a thing that described how things worked. So you can't ever violate a law. You can break men's rules. They're not laws at all, they're rules, and you can break them. It says, you're supposed to do, 60 kilometers and you're doing 80. You broke the law. No, you didn't break the law. You violated a rule. But as far as the law goes, In Aramaic, the word law describes how things work. If you want to be a human being, if you want to function as love, there's a way it works to do that. And those are the laws for producing that result. But there are laws for producing mayhem and insanity in your world. And if you go along with the way that works, then you'll have mayhem and insanity. It's not about obeying somebody's rules. But those who had fear-based minds that did not understand the Aramaic just gave us a whole just insane thought system. And what we're looking to do with this work is to show people how to remove the insanity, that is anything based in hostility or fear, from their minds and their bodies, and return to simply the truth of who we are as human beings, as love. It is the most practical thing in the world.
Sorry, let me put that screen back on. So one of the major pitfalls we humans have fallen into is that of making any teaching on love sound like religion. Many people throw out teaching based on love or only give them lip service because they think those teachings are religion, which they have been subtly taught to reject. So what were you taught about love by religion? I know for me personally, I was taught that God loves you, but he's going to send you to hell. That was literally the first thing that I was taught.
Talk about how to keep a mind in confusion, eh?
Yeah, God loves you, but if you don't come to church, you're going to hell. That's what the literal words the first words I was taught.
Yeah. Most people live in the rule of fear. It's interesting. There's a story about, just finished doing an article on, or I'm still writing it, actually editing it, but just finished doing an article on healing conflict in the Middle East. And I quote Job from the Old Testament. And Job says, I mean, he's giving a whole, when you unpack this simple phrase that he comes up with, you recognize that the whole sum and substance about how people create trauma in their lives is in that sentence. And here's what he says. After all that Job has gone through, I mean, it just crazy stuff, loses everything, family, money, property, everything, animals gone. And his conclusion is, oh, that which I feared most has come upon me. That which I dreaded has happened to me. If you apply those two energy amplifiers of fear and dread to a thought complex in your mind, then you're going to produce that result. Of course, the corollary to that is if you have love active in your mind, fueling your mind, and you empower a thought complex based in love, it's going to produce that result too. But most of the world is running around in their fear and terror because they don't know any better. But it's a law. What you focus on out of your emotional nature is what you create in your life. It's the way the creation works. Yes, that one.
So the idea of love sounds good, but I want to know how to love someone who has just been abusive to me, asked Richard. Who could feel anything but anger and hate in that situation? So to love, you must first straighten out your definition of the word. This may sound trite, but the people who can feel love when attacked know that love is what love is and do not have realities called anger and hate in them.
And the objective is not to love anyone. Never attempt to love anyone, including yourself. Tell your mind that where you're heading is to the experience of yourself as love and keeping the experience of your human beingness, love, present in your body, fueling your mind at all times. Now we've got a whole different game.
But
But
Richard interject.
don't make me look.
Yeah. Remember, our goal is to let go of the old belief and manipulative teachings long enough to build somewhat new brain cells. If, when this session finished, that you have heard what you have heard does not make sense, throw it out and go back to the old way.
Now, Yinka, did you do all that scribbling on the wall?
No, that was already in the
Tisk,
picture.
tisk, tisk.
But that's how I do feel sometimes when I do your work. So love in Aramaic does not mean cooperate with cooperate with and help the person who is beating up on you. It does not mean accept every atrocity with a smile and pretend that all is well, and when it is not. Love does not mean that you don't hold people accountable for their behavior. Love is not passive state of suppressing your anger so you look like a saint. So it's okay to get angry when someone's abuses you, Richard said gleefully. I thought so.
We got a surprise for him.
Yeah. The reality in your head is giving you information that was not delivered by my words, Richard. It's okay to get angry with someone if you want your mind to be stupid while you interact with them, Michael offered.
So our culture thinks of anger as an emotion. Anger is not an emotion. Anger is a drug. It's an internally produced drug that anesthetizes us against pain. The deeper the anesthetized pain is, the more anger it will take to cover it up. When there's not enough anger in the world to cover it up, that's when people turn to drugs and alcohol and junk food and sex and all kinds of other things in order to anesthetize themselves against dealing with their unresolved pain. The tool of forgiveness is about how to remove unresolved pain.
And a key thought, a mind without love is stupid.
Hostility and fear basically mean that the mind is using, if you think of it in computer terms, that the mind is using corrupt data to produce its constructs. And the objective here is to learn to forgive all corrupt data so that you only have accurate data in your mind for building your mind's perceptions. There's some, interesting Harvard research that says that in a time frame where 10,000 brain cells are firing, and we've got a person hooked up to electrodes, and we're measuring how many activations of brain cells are. And in a time frame that they could measure approximately 10,000 brain cells firing, the max amount of data that went into conscious awareness was 9 bits. Little tiny bit is available consciously. In that same time frame, it's been estimated that our world of actuality is approximately 20 trillion bits of data. So the mind becomes a reducing valve. If the 20 trillion bits of data is accurate, and we are in a 20 trillion bit world, the mind reduces it to 10,000. Conscious awareness reduces it to 9 bits of data. And somebody looking at 9 bits of data is sure they know what's going on out there. When in fact, what perception is serving them is simply a massaged version of what's going on in here. Without the proper fuel, the mind simply doesn't work properly. And the only fuel that the human mind is designed to run on is love. And the same with the human cellular structure. Without the active presence of love in a cell, there is a disease process going on. And I'd offer that's the cause of all of our diseases, all of them, 100%.
Richard, what is that supposed to mean? He shouts. It sounds like you're playing games with me, Michael, and I don't like it.
He didn't like me offering the thought that a mind with hostility going on is stupid.
There is an old saying that the truth will set you free, but first it's going to make you very angry, Michael replied, half jokingly, in an attempt to lighten the energy a little.
Yeah, and if you look at the words there, it's going to make you very, very angry. Everything that's in there, it's going to come up. It's got to when the truth shows up.
So love in this culture is so distorted that its true meaning is almost lost. Much of the entertainment industry would have us believe love is sexual, athletic, and saturations. Others would have us believe it is self-denial and sacrifice. Still, others would have us think we show love by receiving their abusive gracefully. Think about it. Who has something to gain by our believing in these bizarre definitions of love?
Good question to answer.
Mm-hmm. So if you believe love is a sexual athletic as portrayed on the screen, you may be wanting to pay for more sick movies and demand more intense and bizarre sexualities in order to be satisfied. You may be thinking that what is played out in the movies is normal and try to live up to the realities you've come to believe is true. Might you find yourself wanting to participate in the outrageous habits for which much of the entertainment industry is famous for? Because fulfilling outrageous fantasies will never satisfy us. It will only lead to even more bizarre behaviors. Until we do, we will continue to repeat those behaviors, wondering, is that all there is? What's wrong with me? If we hold painful realities in our mind, it does not matter how many of the rewards based on an incorrect understanding of life we receive, happiness will still elude us. No matter how many possessions, how much money, sex, power, or fame we achieve, these things can never satisfy us because they are empty and false.
And yet, amazingly enough, a lot of people think that that's what life is because that's all they've seen of it. When you know how to collapse the constructs of your mind, you start to get to see something totally different. To my knowledge, without just accidentally having tripped across it and getting to see the actuality, or at least pieces of the actuality, until we brought the first century Aramaic forgiveness process forward into the English language, it hasn't been available on the planet for 2,000 years. How do you collapse the hallucinations of the mind and step into living truly as you're designed to as a human being? This is what the tool's about.
So there is a story of an old man on his deathbed who was asked for the secret to happiness. The old man is said to have replied, "For years and years, I searched for what people told me would make me happy, and then I decided to be happy without it." Happiness is a state of mind, a choice we make, not a result of possessing things or being in control of people or circumstances. People often use the sensations that comes from possessing things as a substitute for happiness, for relationships, and as a way of not dealing with their internalized pain.
Let me refine this. There's some major pieces of the puzzle that I've learned since I wrote that, which is back in 1995, so about 30 years ago, is that happiness is a result of a dopamine hit that you get from achieving a goal. That's why people can be happy about doing something destructive or hurtful to someone else. They get a buzz, and dopamine has been called happy powder. When it's released and hits receptor sites, things light up. It's like, ooh, happiness. What we're really pursuing, the word that should be in here would be, instead of the word happiness, is joy. That joy is a spontaneous experience that we have physically, mentally, and emotionally when we are connected to our original state as active present love. Happiness is just a fabrication of the mind, and as I say, you can get out of negative or positive goals. You just have to achieve a goal for happiness to appear to be the result you want. But it really isn't the result you want.
Relationships are a wondrous place for nurturing, support, and healing if we can remove the confusing and conflicting realities we have hooked into them. People who reject or cannot form long-term relationships have so much pain in their relationship file. They have to keep on the move, or they will have to face what is hidden inside of them.
Yeah, it's kind of sad that our culture has taught us that we are objects, we are bodies. And as long as we think that we are objects, of course, we think others are objects. And we live in a culture that when you're finished with an object, you throw it away. And so relationships become throwaway, sadly. When we start to relate from a state of being to others as beings, then it's no longer a relationship with the body. Yes, there's a body involved, but it's a relationship with the being. And you can't throw beings away. Changes everything.
The sound's not working. Does that mean you can't hear us? You may need to turn your audio on. So that's where the speaker is. It'll have a little, mine has a little arrow you tap on to turn the speaker on.
And is your mute button off? If you go down, I don't know what kind of a computer you're using, but on mine, if I go down to the right-hand corner, I find settings, and I can see whether or not my speaker or microphone are muted.
Yeah, it's not turned on. That's why I can see it on here. You've not turned it on. So depending on what device you're on, you will need to turn it on.
And why don't we just go ahead while we're waiting, and when they find that, they can just kick back in and we'll have our conversation.
So are there any confusing or conflicting realities you are experiencing about love that is causing you pain?
One of the common ones is, a child is brought up by a parent that when they physically abuse the child, the parent says, well, this hurts me more than it hurts you. Well, no, actually, mom, dad, you're not hurting at all at hurting me. In fact, what is happening is the pain that you hold that you don't even know is there, you are able to vent through reaching out with hostility and hurting me. Because together we're swimming in this sea, this desert of unconscious, unresolved generational pain. And so the child who comes out of a situation like that with a parent, their definition of love becomes, oh, I get hit. And then, that's what they look for in relationship. Why aren't you abusing me? What's wrong with you? Don't you love me? And they're all structures in the mind that when you apply forgiveness will disappear and we can get back on track.
I've been on the run too long. Who promises this
Promotes.
Promotes. My screen's a bit dirty. Who promotes this insanity? Why is there so much confusion in the world? Richard asked. To that, notice who receives the benefits of a twisted understanding of love. Anyone who distorts truth to gain something for themselves is in so much pain and lives in such inward poverty that they cannot live honestly. They think they must manipulate to have anything for themselves to survive. So who benefits from your understanding of love? It's really got me thinking today, this question, on looking at like how things are advertised as love, and you must have this or buy so and so this on this certain day, and that is love. And then looking at who benefits from me believing in that, if I was to believe in that. Recognizing who benefits from your understanding of love.
Yeah, can I make a comment about that? Because
Yeah.
I'm just really noticing my friendships changing, because I think I'm seeing it as conditional. It really is. And if I try to step out of certain dynamics, which I'm trying to do now because I'm really aware of the patterns, and then I'm noticing I'm not getting the love back, I'm getting some anger and some upset. But what's really great is that I'm starting for the first time in my life through this work. I just choose to not dwell in it, and I just choose to come back to happiness and loving myself, which I just would have thought of 6 months ago as impossible to do, because I think I would have been so embroiled in the pain it would have caused from someone kind of almost punishing me for not jumping through a hoop. So it just thank you really, because I just didn't think that was possible to do, to actually come back to a state of love in myself, no matter what's going on outside of me, no matter if someone removes their love. So
Approval. And again, it's really
yeah,
approval they're doing.
approval.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
my offering would be that, again, love isn't a verb. You can't do it to yourself either, but you are literally directly experiencing your essence, which is the experience of love. So it's not
Oh
about
yeah,
the goal of loving them or myself. It's the goal
right.
of moving everything, every false identity out. So the only thing left is me. And now I am in the experience of active present love, no matter what's going on in the world. And some people will see that happening. They'll think you're really nuts. Like, why aren't you raging mad like I am over what
Yeah.
just happened? So thanks. I don't have any of that mad in my store. I've let that go. Thank you very much. Enjoy your pain if that's what you want to do. But there's a way to get rid of it too.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for that clarification. That's really helpful. And it is, it's almost like letting the cork bob back to the top, isn't it? And then suddenly if I take out my reaction, I just feel love naturally. I don't have to try. It just happens. Yeah.
It's who you are.
So
It's the
yeah.
most natural experience you can have. Just hold a newborn and, pardon me, you'll notice if its belly's full and its diaper's empty, that's where it lives. That's where we're all designed to live.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. That's really helpful.
Delighted.
So I'm not quite keeping up with everything you're saying, but I get it. It's important. I suppose have to clean up some of the clouds I've allowed my mind to accept and build more brain cells about what love really is before I will fully grasp it. However, you've got my attention again, Michael. I have a question that has bothered me all my life. What is love?
Hey, where are you?
Oh. I don't know what it is, replied Michael. What? Why are we having this discussion about love if you can't even tell me what it is? Richard demanded.
Where are you going to find words big enough to describe what that is?
So a key thought, if the offspring of an elephant is an elephant and the offspring of a dog is a dog, what is the offspring of love? Do you remember when you were a child, looking around at the way the world worked and knowing in your heart it was supposed to be about something other than what you were seeing, something other than the almost universal strife? I actually remember I was only 5 and I remember thinking to myself, this is not love.
And this is not the way it's designed to work. I can remember that as a kid. It's like, what's going on? This just isn't right.
Yeah, it almost feels weird, because I notice if I allow myself to just come back to love in myself, then I feel expansive and thriving. And then I think, surely that's wrong. My mind will kick in and go, surely that's not a correct reaction, but it's by taking the reactions out that then I feel that.
Yeah. Sounds like a good forgiveness worksheet to do on that, your mind's reaction. And
Yeah.
it's interesting, if you go into the ancient Aramaic language, what they called the kingdom of heaven can be those words can be properly translated as the kingdom of expansion.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We expand into our fullness.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much. Yeah, that makes so much sense what I'm experiencing. Yeah.
Right on. And it's a natural experience.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like just choosing your nature, isn't it? Of pure thriving love and expansion instead of reliving the patterns, I guess.
That's it.
Yeah.
You go back to
Thank
that
you.
story about in the Old Testament about the Jews wandering in the desert for 40 years, and somebody tries to convince you that a group of people who's really, quite bright and has proven they know a whole lot about astronomy is lost in a 35 square mile hot sandy place for 40 years. I mean, does that make any sense? No. The desert is a code word for the unconscious. It's people who are wandering, having no idea that their perceptions are being driven from their own unconscious generational patterns. And you'll remember that what they said to get out of the desert was, and this isn't about theology, it isn't about religion, it's just about life. To get out of the desert, what had to happen? They said the old generation had to die off. That didn't mean everybody in old physical bodies had to physically die. The root of the word generation is genari. It means cause. All of the causes held in the mind, in the genes, had to be removed to leave the unconscious, to leave the desert and move to the promised land. What was the promised land? Is that a place with palm trees and dates? No, the promised land is that you're a conscious creator of your life. You don't create unconscious out of unconscious dynamics anymore. But you've got to go into the desert and clean it out. And
Yeah.
you'll notice, pretty much every slide has the word breathe in it. When they said the veil of the temple must be rent in twain, they were not talking about a purple curtain in a church. The temple is this body-mind unit. The veil is the barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious. The veil is built with holding the breath. You are restored when the veil is opened, and that gives access to the unconscious dynamics so that the unconscious can be cleaned out.
The breath is what helps you release.
That's the key.
Allowing yourself to breathe fully.
That's literally how the veil is built, is by holding the breath. You watch people when they're in trauma, and what do? They hold their breath. And restoring the breath is literally how the unconscious is accessed and what never belonged in the unconscious is removed. Give me just 1 second here. I'm just looking for a quote. Just 1 second here. Carl Jung just said this so beautifully. Greater than all physical dangers are the tremendous effects of delusional ideas, fear-based thought disorders, which are yet denied all reality by our world-blinded consciousness. Until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will direct our lives, and we will call it fate. Until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will direct our lives. Literally, it runs our lives. Time to let go of it.
Got a message in the chat. I remember when I was a baby thinking, why isn't mum and dad being the love I'm giving, seeing the love that I'm giving, but they can't give it back to make me feel safe. I don't remember being a baby, but I remember feeling of unsafety.
Yeah, it's very common. That's why I asked that question. How many remember when you knew it was supposed to be different? I can remember the first time that thought became conscious for me. My dad, when we were very young, didn't have a car, and he bought a car, and we were out on the road, and there was somebody broken down at the side of the road. And I don't know, I might have been 5. And I remember looking at that person with their car broken down at the side of the road, and it was just like beyond me. Well, why are we driving past that person who's in trouble and leaving them there? Well, I mean, I just didn't make any sense. And I think most everybody, if they really tapped into it, remembers when they knew how it was supposed to work. And then the world just came in with this flood of insanity. And we've gotten lost in it. It's time to find ourselves again.
So look into the eyes of a child. How many times on an energy level must that child be violated to cause him to hate? How much propaganda does it take to grow a child into a person who can kill, into a person who believes that the world is a fearsome place, that life is poverty, relationships hell, and sex dirty? What does it take for people to believe they are sinners condemned by a creator called love, in whose image they are made? Why is there such confusion in the world? For the answer, check out who benefits from programmed unconsciousness.
That's a mouthful.
Mhm.
I mean, talk about insanity. That one in sex is dirty, save it for the one you love. Like, what? But that's the culture. Time to clean it up.
Have you ever withdrawn love, put down or tried to control others for your own beliefs? Have you used anger, money, or things to manipulate others into behaving the way you wanted? Have you ever withheld love from yourself? Remember to breathe as you answer this question. That's a question to think about. Can you think back to the beginning, being a kid that kept loving those that abused you? A time you only wanted one thing, to be loved. How did it feel when love was withheld and you were manipulated with money, threats, or put down?
And how do you suppose it feels if you carry on the family tradition?
Under the surface that had been held inside for a long time.
Tears.
Sorry. Okay, so under the surface, tears that had been held inside for a long time ran down Richard's face. It feels to me like there might be a lot of sadness, grief, and uncried tears wanting to let loose, Richard, Michael offered. I was taught it was wrong to cry. Richard's voice cracked as he tried to hide his sadness. That is another reality with which we've been brainwashed. Macho doesn't work. If we cannot accurately feel our feelings, we are out of touch with an important guidance system. Recall, Richard, the operative principle here is if I'm in pain, I'm in error. The pain is an attempt on the part of the body to warn you of error and to be of help. But for me, that I really resonated with that part because through my brain injury, my pain was the help, regardless of what people were saying was going on. When I really
Right.
tapped in to the pain actually had the answer that people said I'd never be able to do again.
Yeah. Yeah. It's taking us right to the core of where the energy is that needs to be dealt with.
Or how often we run away from that pain.
That's what we're taught. Or anesthetize ourselves, drug ourselves against it. And that doesn't mean, let's say someone has a headache and they realize, okay, I've got some work to do here. I'm going to do that work. Doesn't mean, don't go take an aspirin. Go and take it. But now that you've got the message of it, the thing is, if you try to escape it without taking its message on, then what's going to happen is it's going to become more and more and more intense. So you take its message and then you move forward. Janie?
You can unmute.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah. So, in being an embodiment on the planet, and you take on and you have the shape of everyone else like you that is human, and you try to relate to their being physically present, it's like there's their necessary needing to matter, whereas you don't, because of there being a change that is physically seen, which is each other's race.
Each other's
And race.
Oh.
Yeah. And so the bend in my mind that started in the immediate of that when I was small and through onto my 40s is that, and I've long since been 40, so I've broken through, that my presence and what I want and what I need is defaulted to mean less than yours if you are white, and I must be secondary or not count of a mattering meaning whatsoever.
another brainwash of the culture.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And yeah, and it's almost as though there has to be an epiphany that happens before there's the understanding of, well, no, I'm inclusive as what you are. And you have needs, as do I, and we should share on why we are mattering and proving worthwhile to one another than just standing across from another and bullying, for the use of an adjective, of one who has no race is mattering more than a raceful person. In the immediate, that there's the look of it, skin tones. I don't know how to get it more.
Well, I think, when you recognize that there's no child that's born racist, racist is just a thought complex in the mind, and it produces all kinds of aberrant conditions in the mind that holds those thought complexes. And when one chooses to apply forgiveness to those complexes, they tend to fall apart and they're replaced with another experience. It's another area for forgiveness to be applied.
Yeah. I think that's foundative to help everyone who's in a human skin on the planet really start to stand in their own of generating world peace.
I'm with you on that one. It's definitely time.
Yeah. Thanks.
Because for me, from a brain injury, one thing that I realized was I have to feel my own pain. There was a stage where I was getting drugged up a lot because obviously to relieve the pain, which was
right
what at some point I obviously needed that, but it was a sense of, if I can't feel my pain, I can't fix the problem. So as soon as I was able to speak, I told him not to give me any pain relief. And it was a sense of, if I don't feel this, I can't fix it. I can't tune into it to what it's telling me. The more they gave
Exactly.
me painkillers, it was like the more they were kind of killing that kind of part of me that was going to be able to help. And as soon as I
Exactly.
got
It's a
off the
guidance system.
painkillers, yeah.
Yeah, as this next paragraph tells us, if you can't feel your feelings accurately, you're out of touch with an important guidance system.
So it's for each of us to go in and to be able to feel our own pain, to get
Yeah.
that guidance.
And delight, same thing. It's all part of the guidance system.
Mhm.
You know, basically what creates what we call emotions, you know, when we think of thought, what they've shown in the laboratory is that the thought becomes an actual molecule inside of the body. The molecule is called a neuropeptide. It circulates around in the structure till it finds a receptor site with a cell that matches, and it lands on the receptor site. When that mind entry, that molecule lands on the cell, my take is the cell generates a signal, an emotion that says, this is good, this is in harmony with our creative process, or no, you don't want to be doing this. And when we anesthetize it, we can go on filling ourselves with energetic patterns that are destructive and not even know what's happening.
Yinka, I find that so helpful. Thank you for sharing that, because as I have like such severe issues in my finger joints, and I refused a year ago any of the drugs they were giving me because my sense was I'm holding on to something in here. And throughout like the time of not taking any medication, then I've learned what it's telling me, and I can feel then when I get a flare up of the issue, it's like what am I thinking? What am I feeling? So if I'd have taken the drugs, I think I would have been unable to assess that and work through everything. But it's kind of been a rocky road. But I'm so grateful that you shared that, Yinka, because it really helps me when you tell me about your journey with your pain, because I think it's what I'm doing sometimes without knowing what I'm really doing. That makes sense. But I think you said that you didn't always have these teachings when you were doing it. It was just
I think they
instinctive.
are in us. These teachings are in us. It's just the stuff that's been put on top of it that
Yeah. It just helps me trust that I'm, because everyone was like, you're crazy, you're in so much pain, take the drugs. I was like, no. It's like, yeah, I need to listen.
Let your inner knowing come through, and it
Yeah.
will guide you.
Yeah.
We may not know it in our intellects, but the energy field, if we're listening and we're sensitive to it, will always tell us.
Yeah. And I had a struggle with my foot that is still a little bit injured from a bike accident. And everybody around me said, so now go to the doctor, go there. And so, but I did not went because I thought, can not my body heal by himself? But when the pain went bigger, then I thought, oh, shall I really not go? And then I discovered that I think the help comes from the outside. And but I resisted. I did not go. It's still a little bit. So there is something in me which does not really, I don't know, it's not really finished, but I was glad that I did not hear the friends who directly go and find something to help outside. And to find, so I mean, the result would be that I can trust myself.
Well, and we have a world we live in, and there are people that can, there's nothing like a little help from our friends. So knowing when I need to be listening to my own guidance, or knowing when it's appropriate, my take as a healthcare provider is that ultimately we each need to be our own healthcare providers, our own primary care doctors. So we know enough about our structure to know what's going on, and if help is needed, to know where to go to get it, and to be able to filter the input that's given to serve as the highest and best. So I wouldn't say, completely cut everything out there, You know, I mean, we're in a world with people who have skills that perhaps we don't have, and it can be appropriate to ask for that support. But always knowing that you know enough about your own structure and your own challenges to know when the guidance is correct and when it's off base.
Mm. And I knew the doctor couldn't do anything. There was
No.
nothing broken. There was not.
Right.
Yeah.
Go for it, Yinka.
So have you ever thought of yourself as the abuser? Or have you always considered yourself as a nice person that is just doing what was normal to you? These are behaviours that few have escaped, almost universal phenomena and an opportunity for healing that virtually every one of us gets. Unfortunately, abuse and exploitation have become normal for many people, but that does not make it natural. Remember when, as a child, you knew life was about love and abuse was a foreign concept. Abuse can be inherited, but usually it must be learned. Abuse and withhold love are learned responses. The reality structure in most people's minds, which is formed as a result of their distorted learning experience, determines their behavior. Each distorted experience is a result of the combination of internal realities interacting with environment influences.
And if you choose to do what the world calls withhold love, who gets to lack love first? Who gets it ripped off for the experience? We do. Does restoring my presence as love mean I have to do what somebody else says or I have to believe what they say? No, no. It just means that I am a presence and I maintain my presence because that's the most valuable thing I have is my own human life.
And I chose this image as well because it's when we withhold love, often we say we're too busy. It's also a way of withholding love.
Number one drug of the culture, busy.
Could you repeat that one, please? Number one?
The number one drug of the culture is busyness. You know, if I talk to people over the years, when I say, well, you said you were going to do those 5 worksheets, did you get them done? No, I didn't. Well, why not? I was too busy. That's the most common answer that I've ever gotten for decades. Busyness is a way to avoid dealing with one's life. If you don't give yourself time to be with yourself as the presence of love, you know, the alarm clock goes off. Your heart is in alarm. You have to get up and go and get it done. Instead of taking time to be with yourself, to breathe, to connect to love, to cultivate the presence of love in your form, and then extend it out into the world. Changes the whole game.
Thank you.
So in Aramaic, blocking awareness of abusive behaviors of love and or of feeling was called hardening the heart. Each hardened heart is convinced that to act in accord with its distorted reality structure in normal, when we can't feel, we can be convinced to do all sorts of insane things to ourselves and others and think it's normal.
And it's an old trick of kings to brainwash people with hostility and fear. Because human beings who function as love won't do what most kings want to have done. That is, somebody's got property, somebody's got something I want you to go kill them and take it for me. Human beings won't do that. You have to destroy the human essence in a person to get them to do that sort of thing. This work is about being restored to our human essence.
Because when I went through this as well, the thing that kept coming to my mind was, but it's normal. And the sense of, I do that because it is normal.
It is normal, but it's not natural. There's a big difference between the two. If everybody else is doing that, probably means it's in error.
Blockage of truth. A mind in denial literally hides information from itself. It does not see information contrary to what it believes. If we hold an emotionally charged goal of being right, the mind hides all evidence that enables us to see the truth. The only thing available is error. Think about people who abuse but deny it. They interpret their behavior to justify it or blot the truth out of awareness so they can continue to think of themselves as right. The truth of the abuse they do is invisible to them. This is condition that can be corrected only by love of truth.
So what happens, remember we talked about that Harvard research, 10,000 brain cells are firing, 9 bits of data go into conscious awareness. And if we have a perceptual construct that's a lie, and we call that lie truth, then we filled all the spaces available for awareness in the mind with a lie that we call truth, and now there's no room for the truth to enter. And that's one of the reasons the forgiveness process is so important, because the forgiveness process from the first century Aramaic language collapses those constructs in the mind. And now, with a clean and open space within the mind, there's room for truth to show up. So, and I would change, again, I've learned many things since I wrote this book 30 years ago. I would not call that by love of truth anymore. I'd call that honoring truth. No, it's in the years between when I wrote this book and, I was brainwashed with the culture's thing of talking about love as something we do to each other, something we give to each other, something we get, and something we can do. So it really isn't loving truth, it's honoring truth. It's honoring self that's important. It's honoring others that's important. And honoring in that ancient Aramaic context means I function from love toward the object of whatever it is that I'm honoring.
It always surprises me through this how much we can actually hide from ourselves.
Pretty amazing.
And if I didn't do the worksheet, I wouldn't see it. It's like
Yeah, well, most people have no awareness outside of whatever is showing up in their 9-bit mind in that. And the constructs in their mind, because they're visual, they think their eye is actually seeing it out there, but they're not seeing it at all. It's actually painted on the inside of our eyeballs. We're not looking out there at all. We're looking at the condition of our own minds managed into a set of pictures that fit the beliefs we've been taught to believe. And if there's pain in that, the whole thing is based in corruption. When you forgive, you collapse that corruption. It drops into its own footprint, and now you've got the opportunity to heal and deal with what's underneath it, hidden in the unconscious, under the veil.
So if you want to do an interesting experiment, show someone evidence of a truth they do not want to see. Unless they love truth deeply, they will, 1, tell you that you are crazy or imagining things, or they forget the evidence ever happened. 2, leave physically by making an excuse or mentally by wandering off to other topics and not acknowledging the conversation you are attempting to have with them. 3, turn on you with some form of manipulation, usually anger, to stop you from presenting your information or cause you of a similar defect, accuse you of a similar defect, telling you about a time when you did the same thing as though that justifies their behavior and makes them right. Or 4, attack you fiercely in a manner that is all out of proportion to the issue involved. You will wonder what hit you. Chances are you will end up unwelcome in that person's life.
Pretty common process.
And I can see the cycle of myself doing it with others. And they do that part, and then I do this part, and that kind of cycle of doing this.
Insanity.
Yeah.
That's what it is. 'Tis true.
So insanity, not craziness. In this work, an insane mind is defined as one that lacks the condition of love. A mind without love is a mind without real choices, therefore insane. In Aramaic thought, it was known that without love, humans were easy to take advantage of, weak and vulnerable. Love is a major key because it inoculates the mind against insane behavior. That is why it is called the first law. A lack of awareness of this law is a recipe for insanity. And not the type of insanity I do at the weekend. Definition for love. Love is present. First, the mind that holds the condition of love. In the ancient Aramaic, perfect love is peaceful and patient in all circumstances. This mind takes responsibility for any disturbance it has and therefore heals itself quickly and creates a space of healing for others. Additional fruits the mind of love includes is tenderness, compassion, and gentleness. A mind that proclaims it punishes and brandish fear in the name of love is either deceiving or is a deceived mind. No such fruit is possible from love.
But we'll get all kinds of stories that'll tell us, you know, again, I'm only doing this because I love you. Right.
Love in Aramaic is a condition in the mind that each individual is responsible for maintaining. It is the fuel that empowers the human mind to function correctly. Without love, the mind is dysfunctional and we do insane things.
What it takes. I mean, think of any time in your life, you know, has anybody ever done anything you regret? Go back to one time in your life when you did something that today you regret having done it. Pick out one specific time and notice that the energy that was moving in you when you did that was some form of hostility or fear. When you extract a proper power supply, the mind's insane. Notice, if you ever had anybody accuse you of saying something you absolutely never said, doing something you absolutely never did? Anybody ever have that happen? Go back and look at the circumstance where that occurred. Notice, what state was that person in when they accused you of saying what you didn't say, doing what you didn't do? Hostility or fear. Power supply is gone. The thing's broken. Got to restore its power supply before it'll run. So Young, I just noticed your name. What a great affirmation. Eternal.
Yes.
Yeah, what a great name. Who are you? Oh, I'm so young. All right. That's great.
So when are you most intelligent? When do you have the most flexibility, the widest range of choice, and the highest level of creativity? Is it when you are in anger, afraid, or hostile?
Dylan, did you ever find your speaker?
She's still here, so let's see.
Yep.
No, she's still not turned it on yet.
Oh, well.
I did send her a video of how to do it. Hopefully
And
she'll be able
breathe.
to watch the recording. Notice when a choice is made in anger or upset, a lack of love, it is no choice at all. We are simply driven by resonance, emotional realities from our past, driven to do things often against our own will and choice. This only happens in a mind that lacks love.
Yeah, so the what we call the non-being mind, the body's mind, has a cheap copy of everything that's real in the spiritual dimension. In the spiritual dimension, we have choice. In the mental dimension, all we have is resonance. People call it reason, but it's resonance. If I say, don't think about the color of your car, what moves in your mind? Color of your car. If I say, what's your favorite item of clothing? What moves in your mind? The favorite item of clothing. If I say, what's the front door of your house look like? What moves in your mind? Somebody says, well, I'm not thinking about it. Oh, really? What is it you're not thinking about? In order not to think about it, resonance. The mind is a decision-making machine, and we have the decisions of generations and generations and generations. If those decisions are not in harmony with love, better clean them out, or when they're resonated into activity, they'll tend to take over your life. And a mind without the active presence of love doesn't produce a functional life. Certainly doesn't produce a happy life or a fulfilled life. But whatever it is, we can be restored. And the beauty of it is, once restored, it doesn't matter how tragic or traumatic the event was, in the presence of love, that tragic or traumatic event will take a back seat. Doesn't mean it's not there. It'll take a back seat. It won't be, oh my God, look at this. It'll just be, oh, yeah, that happened. It's like experiencing the truth of who you are, experiencing yourself and living as the presence of love makes you bigger than anything that could possibly, get in the way. And we all have that at our disposal, all of us. 24/7, 365.
So this lack of love, which is compromises intelligence, has led most of humanity to be shackled to religious and political systems based on fear. We need to understand how to forgive our fears, or as said in the Aramaic scriptures, cast out the demon fear. If we do not, we will find ourselves unwittingly acting in support of that demon. A mind without the condition of love promotes and reinforces fear at every turn. No true spiritual teacher who understands how life and the mind operate uses fear to motivate.
And if you go to that word demon, the Greeks have got this whole pantheon of horrific creatures out there that are out to get us. In Aramaic, that bears no resemblance to the meaning of the word that's been translated as demon. Demon is something that men have constructed in their minds And the thought complex becomes so all-pervasive that it controls perceptions, decisions, behaviors, and words. That's a demon. The Greeks created all these creatures out there to get us. And how much of the world is, in fear of demons? I worked with a man recently, and he's telling me he's actually a doctor. And he was telling about how his whole family was just under attack from these dark forces. Right. Guess where the dark force is? How did Carl Jung say it? What we don't deal with turns into experience. We create the demons. We forgive the demons. That is, remove them, not let them off the hook. And it's not them as an entity. It's simply, in Aramaic, was understood to be a structure of mind. So this guy looks like he's doing a pretty good job of cleaning out the demons.
Yeah. The key thought, the greatest help you can give me is to banish fear from your heart.
Yep.
So I've seen fear motivate people to do the right thing, said Richard. In the short term, I agree. You can get people to do things out of fear. Have you noticed the long-term result is always a disaster? For instance, a parent forces a child with threats and abuse. The child obeys the parent out of fear, but in the end hates them and passes the force and abuse to others. The reason is the tools used to produce a result will always produce a result like the tools, replies Michael.
So yes, you see somebody in fear, and there's enough decency going on in their minds that they're moving the direction of doing, quote unquote, what we might call the right things. But if that mind were connected to love, they'd be 10 times more powerful at producing the right kind of result. So it doesn't mean you can't find some way to make some sort of use of it, but it's an inferior state from which to create a constructive result.
Allowing deeper issues to surface in the presence of love burns them off, so to speak. If you are willing to look into yourself, your family interactions, and the dynamics of the culture, healing accelerates. An unwillingness to look deeper means that old patterns will tend to be passed on and played out by the next generation. Conscious, active, present love is the key to healing whatever needs to be healed.
That's the bottom line of all of it. We could sum the whole book up in this chapter.
So what is the best tool for really, truly getting to the space of love within relationships with children, spouses, or myself, and healing those generational patterns? Richard inquires. When someone triggers a healing opportunity, the first thing to do is choose to be responsible for your mind's output. Forgive and learn to hold the condition of love in your mind in all circumstances, regardless of what your mind prompts you to do. The tool, keeping love in your mind when you feel turmoil. And the best exercise to practice is strengthen your ability to hold space of love, to close your eyes and allow yourself to become quiet. With your awareness focused inside, think of that which inspires in you the clearest, strongest, the most powerful love you are capable of feeling. And breathe. That is actually our final slide for that chapter, because next chapter will be chapter 19, Inherited Patterns, and that'll be in Thursday, the 9th of May.
Sweet. And there's a commitment that's available on our website. You can go to whyagain.org and click my commitment. And what I'd like to do, and this is the last page in the chapter, I'd like to just make this commitment to you. It's a tool that we teach in our workshop on healing through relationships. It's a tool that I developed over a period of decades, literally, word for word, in what word structures help us individually to keep that condition of love in our minds and what kind of behaviors support that. So I'd like to make this commitment to you. I promise to trust you enough to tell you the truth and treat you lovingly, gently, and with respect. I'll do this in my thoughts, my words, and my actions, whether I'm in your presence or not. In every interaction, I will look for and acknowledge the highest and best in you as I surrender to love, our true nature. My connection to my source and nurturing my relationship with you will always be more important than any issue. If anything unlike love comes up, I will hold this in my heart and listen as I learn to speak, experience, and be responsible for my own realities. I'm here for and with you. I will keep communication open and keep love conscious, active, and present as we heal and celebrate life. You can get a copy of that in a version that you can use with yourself in the mirror, first person, with a child. There's a child's commitment, something you can use to teach a child the kind of language that supports living as the presence of love. And on the website, there's also one for business. So if you go to whyagain.org and look under my commitment, you'll find all of those printed, and we can just print them off. So thank you all for joining us. Delight to be here with you.
Thank
Michael,
you.
just a question: how is that tool called? That relationship tool on your
My
on
commitment.
your website?
My commitment.
My commitment.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Best session ever. Brilliant.
Mhm. Yeah.
Delighted, honored.
Thank you
And,
so
you
much.
know, this is what, chapter 16, 17? No, 18. So there are 18 other videos that we've done where we've covered each chapter of the book. So check out either Yinka's site, or you can go to our YouTube channel. By the way, one of the things we're working on doing is building our YouTube channel, and we would appreciate support of going there and watching our videos. And when you watch them, click a like, join the channel. There's no cost involved. And anything that you watch, click a like if you would. That would be really helpful. And our YouTube channel, if you just go to YouTube and type in Michael, Michael, space RYCE, you'll be looking at our YouTube channel. There are a couple of hundred videos there, and we're in the process of adding more every day. So if you'd support us with that, we'd appreciate it.
Mm.
Okay.
Yinka, can you put that in the WhatsApp? How it is
Yes, I will
called?
put that in the WhatsApp as well.
Cool.
Oh.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And of course, our radio show is now being done on Podbeam. So 5 days a week, 1 till 2 o'clock Eastern time. And wherever you are in the world, if you just ask Google where Bristol, Virginia is in terms of time zone, you'll know what time it is. 1 till 2 o'clock. You can you can download a free app called Podbean, Podbean. So
Okay.
we're doing the radio show on Blog Talk Radio, but we're also doing it on Podbean. And so you can listen to it wherever you are in the world. You don't need a phone. And if you want to speak, you can ask a question live without using cell minutes or anything. So wherever you are in the world, you can interact with us more on Podbean. We're still practicing how that's working, but we're learning. So that's another way to connect with us.
If
And if you're
anybody
ready to
wants
take
to
things, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, if anyone wanted to practice the worksheet, we're doing one tomorrow at the 5 a.m. club.
Cool. Awesome. And there are at least 20. If you go to our website, whyagain.org, there's a special section of radio shows where we've walked somebody all the way through the whole worksheet live on the radio show. Each one of them is different, different questions, different things come up. So if you really want to understand the Aramaic forgiveness process, then, check in and look at those special videos where we've walked people through the worksheet process. We're also working on putting those into video format so that they'll be available on the website. That's a project that's undergoing right now.
Mhm.
So thank you all for joining us, and blessings.
Thank you. And I shall
See
leave
you in
Thank you,
2
Michael.
weeks. All
Very
right, blessings.
refreshing always.
Thank you.
Blessing. Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Ingrid, and everyone.
Delighted.
Bye bye.